The Scythians, nomadic warriors of gold and fire, across the boundless steppes of Eurasia, where the horizon stretches into eternity and the wind howls like an ancient spirit, once roamed a people whose name echoed across continents. The Scythians. They left no cities. They built no temples of stone. But their legacy was carved into the earth, in burial mounds of gold, in the bones of horses, in the whispers of Greek historians and the fear of Persian kings. They were nomads, warriors, raiders, and artists. And for nearly 1,000 years, they dominated the vast grasslands from the Danube to the Altai. Long before the rise of Rome, when Athens was still young, Scythian horsemen had already created one of the largest and most mysterious cultures in the ancient world. They did not leave behind written chronicles of their own, but others wrote about them, in awe, in fear, in fascination. The Greek historian Herodotus described them as a nation of mounted archers, fierce in battle, wild in ritual. To the Greeks, the Scythians were both barbarians and paradoxes, brutal yet noble, primitive yet sophisticated, terrifying yet beautiful. They spoke an Iranian language, but their culture was like nothing seen before or since. Their home was the steppe, their wealth measured in horses, herds, and gold, and their world revolved around mobility, survival, and sacred fire. The Scythians did not settle. They moved with the seasons, with the wind, with the needs of their animals. Their tents, carts, and belongings were made to travel. Their warriors, men and women alike, trained from childhood to ride, to shoot, to kill. To be Scythian was to be one with the horse, one with the sky. The Scythians were not builders of cities or keepers of borders. Their power came from the very thing others feared, the endless open steppe. They were nomads, not because they were primitive, but because they had mastered mobility as a weapon. They could appear anywhere, vanish into the wind, strike deep into enemy lands, and be gone before a counterattack was even imagined. Their warriors rode with composite bows, small but deadly, capable of piercing armor at a full gallop. They wore scale armor made from iron, bronze, or hardened leather, and they fought not in formation, but as a swarm, coordinated chaos. To face Scythian horsemen was to face the storm itself. But their lives were not only about war. The Scythians lived in mobile clans, moving with their herds across vast distances. Their carts were pulled by oxen. Their homes were yurts made from felt and wood, and their survival depended on an intimate knowledge of land, weather, and animal behavior. They were skilled herders and hunters, traders and craftsmen. Their diet consisted of meat, milk, fermented mare's milk, kumis, and wild herbs. They wore colorful woolens, decorated with embroidery and gold. Their weapons and tools were practical, yet many were ornately decorated, showing a deep respect for artistry. Even in the harshest conditions, and wherever they roamed, they took the sacred fire with them, a spiritual center carried in bronze cauldrons lit in every camp. For the Scythians, fire symbolized continuity, memory, and divine presence. To let it die was to break the bond between the clan and the spirit world. When a Scythian died, especially a chieftain or warrior, the rituals were long, solemn, and powerful. Great kurgans, or burial mounds, were built from earth and stone, rising like sentinels above the plains. Inside, the dead were placed in wooden chambers, surrounded by their weapons, jewelry, horses, and sometimes even sacrificed attendants or wives. To be buried in a kurgan was to enter eternity with honor. These mounds still dot the landscapes of Ukraine, southern Russia, Kazakhstan, and the Caucasus, silent testaments to a people who measured their time not by years, but by wind, hooves, and firelight. For a people who wandered the windswept steppes, the Scythians had an astonishing gift for beauty. Their world, though mobile and raw, was adorned with golden masterpieces, intricate ornaments, and symbols that bridged the human and the divine. To the Scythians, gold was not just wealth. It was power, protection, and presence. They adorned their weapons with it. They buried their dead in it. They wore it on their chests, their foreheads, and their horses. Archaeologists have uncovered treasures from Scythian burial mounds that rival the riches of kings, gold torques and bracelets twisted into the shapes of rams, eagles, and mythical beasts, headdresses with leaf-shaped gold plates that shimmered in the sunplaques and appliques stitched into clothing, forming scenes of battle, hunting, or cosmic duality. Tiny golden stags, frozen in motion, representing speed, vigilance, and transcendence. This distinctive style, now called the Scythian animal style, is one of the most recognizable artistic traditions of the ancient world. It blends realism with abstraction, movement with myth. A predator devouring its prey, a horse in mid-gallop, a griffin with wings outstretched. These were not just decorations, but symbols of life, death, the hunt, the spirit realm. They carved in wood, molded in bronze, embroidered with bone and ivory, and when they had the means, they shaped gold like it was clay. But even the humblest of Scythians wore decoration: beads, amulets, rings made from bronze or horn, each one charged with meaning, and their horses, more than beasts of burden, were honored with ornate tack, headgear, and golden bridles, reflecting the status of both rider and mount. In some royal burials, entire teams of horses were sacrificed and buried alongside their masters, their bodies wrapped in gold-studded harnesses, their spirits meant to ride forever. This love for gold and symbolism created a contradiction that defined the Scythians. They were nomads, yet produced imperishable art. They had no palaces, yet left behind treasure worthy of emperors. They lived close to the earth, and yet surrounded themselves with celestial beauty. Among the Scythians, women were not hidden behind walls. They rode, they hunted, they fought. To ancient Greeks, this was unthinkable, but to the Scythians, it was natural. Excavations of burial mounds across the Pontic steppe and Central Asia have revealed a truth long suspected. The Amazons of Greek legend were not mere fantasy. They were inspired by real Scythian women. Archaeologists have found the remains of women buried with weapons, armor, and war horses. Some had arrowheads lodged in their bones. Others were interred with shields, knives, and full warrior gear, no different from male burials. These were not symbolic items. These women fought, bled, and commanded. In Scythian society, roles were flexible, fluid, and earned. While many women led domestic life, others, especially among the nobility, trained in horseback riding and archery from youth. They were expected to defend their clans, lead migrations, and sometimes participate in raiding parties. Some even rose to positions of shamanic or ritual power, combining martial skill with spiritual authority. Greek travelers, stunned by this freedom, spun tales of entire cities ruled by female warriors. The Amazon myth, born of admiration and fear, placed these women in distant lands beyond the Black Sea, which is exactly where Scythian women lived. The visual image of these women is unforgettable, clad in tightly fitted leather armor, reinforced with bronze scales, hair braided with beads or golden bands, bows at their sides, daggers strapped to their thighs, riding fast horses across an endless landscape of wind and fire. But they were more than warriors. Scythian women were also storytellers, artists, priestesses, and healers. They passed down oral traditions, guarded sacred fires, performed ritual dances, and embroidered meaning into every thread they wore. In many ways, the soul of the Scythians lived in their daughters. Their resilience, grace, and strength carried from one generation to the next, galloping across the centuries. No empire lasts forever, not even one without walls. By the 3rd century BCE, the great Scythian world began to fade. The reasons were many, and they came like waves across the grasslands. New powers rose from the east. The Sarmatians, another Iranian-speaking nomadic people, began moving into Scythian territories. At first, they coexisted. Then they competed. Then they conquered. The Sarmatians were fierce, heavily armored with elite cavalry known as cataphracts. covered in scale armor from head to hoof. Their society mirrored that of the Scythians in many ways: mobility, warrior ethos, ritual burials. But they came with fresh energy and new strategies. Step by step, the Sarmatians pushed the Scythians westward. The old kurgans of the Scythian kings were left behind, their sacred fires dimmed. Their names began to disappear from the scrolls of chroniclers. But the Scythians did not vanish. They transformed. Some were absorbed into Sarmatian tribes, others migrated north or west, and some, especially in the North Caucasus and along the Terek River, became part of a new people, the Alans. The Alans carried forward much of the Scytho-Sarmatian heritage, language rooted in Eastern Iranian horse culture, honor codes, and warrior traditions, burial customs, and gold work of belief in fire, sky, and the strength of free movement. Later, the Alans would ride into Europe during the Great Migrations. Some would settle in Gaul and Hispania. Others would be crushed by the Huns. But a part of them, the proudest part, would survive in the Caucasus Mountains. And there, through centuries of isolation, battle, and endurance, their descendants still live. They are called the Ossetians. Though the Scythians are long gone, the earth still remembers them, from Ukraine to Kazakhstan, from the steppes of the Don to the valleys of the Caucasus. Their burial mounds still rise, silent and proud. Underneath those hills lie the remnants of a vanished world: golden torques, rusted blades, leather belts, arrowheads, and bones, all untouched for centuries, until modern hands rediscovered them. In the 20th and 21st centuries, archaeologists uncovered treasures of staggering beauty. In places like Pasirik, Isik, Arzan, Chertomlik, and Kul-Oba, they found golden plaques depicting griffins, panthers, and stags in flight. Mummified warriors, their tattoos still visible on preserved skin cloaks sewn from thousands of gold beads, ritual vessels, bridles, armor, earrings, all miraculously preserved beneath permafrost or clay. Each find was like opening a time capsule, a glimpse into a people who lived on horseback, who honored their dead with fire and metal, and who spoke through their art even after death. And yet, their greatest legacy is not in the museums. It lives on in the spirit of freedom, in the love of the open plain, in the cultures that remember their ancestors not by their cities, but by their courage. Today, the image of the Scythian lives on in the fierce Amazon on a horse, the golden stag leaping across cloth or canvas, the warrior who bows to fire before battle, the people of the Caucasus, especially the Ossetians, who still speak a descendant of the old tongue and carry in their bones the memory of the steppe. The Scythians remind us that civilization can ride, that it can live without walls, that strength is not only measured in stone and steel, but in movement, memory, and the way a people carry themselves across the land. They are gone, but in the wind, in the earth, in the fire, they still ride.